Good evening, everyone. I know we scheduled a 6 o'clock start. We thought we'd give it a little bit of time just in case there were some stragglers who were coming in. But I want to first of all thank everyone for coming. I'm Aaron Polanski. I'm the Superintendent Director at Old Colony Regional. I'm joined by our PMA team. Nick and Chad are here with us. Shirley Burke is our Rochester representative to the school committee. She's also the building committee chairperson. Maureen, Mark, who I think everybody knows, and Beth Sulger were our 3 Carver representatives on our building committee. I know we've got Glenn with us today, who's a very familiar face, and Scott was actually part of one of our planning sessions. He's been a wonderful partner. We're thrilled to work with Carver. We just finished the concession stand at the high school, and I just want to extend my gratitude to Scott for inviting us over to do that. Tonight, what we tried to do is put together a format that would allow you to get home to your families in reasonable time. So we have about a 12-minute video that will provide you with a plethora of information. And then after the video, what we'd like to do is open it up to question and answer. If you're asking questions, we would just ask you to come up to this microphone for Dylan so that he can capture any audio for people at home. And with that being said, maybe we'll roll this video for you. And we'll get started, and then if you have questions, we're going to open up the mic so that people can ask questions. So thank you very much.
Old Colony is not just an educational institution for our 5-member towns. We're a partner in service, in labor market solution, and a destination for many to take advantage of a community-focused outreach that happens each and every day. Old Colony students have been responsible for projects like the construction of the COA shed and installation of electric car stations in Acushnet, the Carver Junior Senior High concession stand, construction of Loon Pond Lodge and Ted Williams Park in Lakeville, renovation of the American Legion, Holy Ghost Grounds, and Dunseith Gardens in Mattapoisett, and construction of the COA shed, work at Plum Library, and the upcoming addition to the Rochester Council on Aging, to name only a few. With the addition of a plumbing and HVAC program, Old Colony will become a fully operational construction outfit with direct additional benefit for our communities and taxpayers. In this video, we'll show the opportunity we have to secure more than $125 million in state funds through the MSBA to fund the project. We'll review how we got here by reviewing the steps we've completed in the MSBA process. And we'll detail the project scope and budget for the new high school, including the amount that would be financed on our local tax rolls. We'll detail the project scope and budget for the new high school, including the amount that would be financed on our local tax rolls. And we'll explain a key step in the MSBA process, community authorization by our 5-member towns. Old Colony and its member communities have a rare opportunity to fund a new vocational technical high school with the MSBA. The MSBA is a state authority that helps local school districts pay for the design and construction of schools. For every dollar spent, 1 penny of our state sales tax goes to the MSBA, and it's funded more than $17 billion in statewide school construction since 2004. The program is highly competitive. Only about 15% of school districts that apply are accepted into the program each year. Old Colony was accepted into the program in March 2022 and has spent the past 3 years meeting MSBA requirements, hiring a project team, and gathering public feedback. The MSBA process is rigorous but ensures that our project not only meets the highest standards in 21st century vocational technical education in the most fiscally responsible solution. The payoff for this work is significant. By completing the MSBA process, Old Colony can have about 55% of its eligible costs reimbursed by the MSBA and another 5.7% paid through incentive points for maintenance, efficiency, and sustainability. Meanwhile, the cost of repair and renovation of the existing 50-year-old building, with no additional programming and no expanded enrollment, estimates to more than $130 million on longer timelines and with no reimbursement from the MSBA. Here's how the Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical High School got to where we will ask our communities for authorization in special elections in our 5 towns on November 18th. The school was selected into the highly competitive MSBA Core program in March 2022 because the existing school building has reached the end of its useful life. Opened in 1975, the building celebrated its 50th year in service this year. And despite incredible maintenance efforts to keep the building in good working condition, the building's size, design, and space no longer serves the needs associated with the 21st century vocational education.
With significant space constraints for existing programs that do not match enrollment demand, do not provide room for vital student supports, nor room to expand vocational offerings like HVAC, plumbing, and dental assisting, which are in high demand in our communities. To begin the process, Old Colony's School Building Committee, consisting of school and town leaders and resident volunteers, conducted a feasibility study, hired a project team which includes an owner's project manager and architectural design firm, and embarked on a comprehensive effort to hear from the community through informational sessions, focus groups, and most importantly, an educational visioning process where anyone in our communities, including our students, could help capture the needs a new Old Colony should serve. Our School Building Committee took all of this feedback to create an educational plan, which directed the design team to create several options of renovation, addition, and replacement of the high school. The project team presented 40 different scenarios to evaluate, which the School Building Committee evaluated with a detailed scoring system to identify the most financially responsible solution which supports Old Colony's long-term educational goals. The School Building Committee identified 8 options for the project team to develop further, including various options of repair, renovation addition, and new construction. And in December 2024, the School Building Committee selected a new construction option for 776 students as its preferred option to build an entirely new building adjacent to the existing school. Here's how our design team took months of planning, public feedback, and guidance from our School Building Committee to design and scope out every inch of a new Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical High School. The new 2-story building will measure approximately 270,000 square feet, located adjacent to the existing school building. This minimizes disruption to school activities during the construction period and saves time, money, and resources that a phased-in construction would require. The building is laid out in 4 main wings, arrayed around a central hub, the heart of the school. The gymnasium anchors the Health and Wellness Wing, which will also house new science labs, our Health Careers program, and a new dental assisting program on the 2nd floor. The wing south and west converges with this one to provide a complete offering of publicly accessible spaces, including the auditorium and cafeteria, hubbed with the culinary program, along with cosmetology and business on the 1st floor, with graphics, computer science, architecture and engineering, and electronics on the 2nd floor in close proximity to the media center. On the opposite side of the site layout, automotive, machine and tool, and metal fabrication are located in the southeast wing and share a working courtyard with their neighboring wing to the north, which hosts the construction cluster, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and carpentry. Academic classrooms are located throughout, including a dedicated music space and room for breakout sessions, counseling, and integrated special education. With room for 776 students, this expanded capacity provides a more equitable way to meet demand for in-demand vocational programs, and meets the key educational goals and objectives reflected from our communities through visioning and our School Building Committee's educational plan, promoting personalization, connection, and ownership, a culture of learning, vocational learning that happens in clusters, school as a community resource, a secure and welcoming place, adaptability and sustainability in design, and both indoor and outdoor learning. Here's the project scope and budget for a new Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical High School under the MSBA process. The total project budget is approximately $288.7 million. This includes careful contingency planning for rising costs and demolition of the existing building, which will be converted into additional parking space. With community authorization, the MSBA would contribute about $129 million to this budget, or about 60.5% of eligible project costs. In addition to Old Colony's base reimbursement rate from the MSBA, the project will get another $11 million in Mass Save rebates and IRA tax credits, leaving about $148 million to be financed on the local tax rolls of our member communities, distributed between the towns based on annual enrollment data. Here's how we propose to pay for our portion. A debt exclusion, which means the tax increase is temporary and expires once the bond is paid off. A 30-year bond using a conservative interest rate of 4%. This is a fixed amount until the bond is repaid. You can see the average single-family assessed home value in each of our 5 towns to see the average annual tax impact, or use the tax impact calculator on our project website to input your home's value and estimated tax impact. The MSBA process only moves forward with community authorization from our 5 towns. However, the results are not 5 separate elections. This is one aggregated vote where a simple majority would approve the project and its funding. Community authorization moves the high school project to the next phase, a year of design development and construction documentation, then bidding and construction, with the goal of cutting the ribbon and occupying the new school in the fall of 2029. The MSBA process ends without community authorization. It may only schedule another vote with the MSBA's approval. Otherwise, the MSBA's involvement would cease, and any future MSBA involvement on a future project or repair effort would require the filing of a new statement of interest by Old Colony. We would go back to the beginning of the process if and when the MSBA accepts us back into the program, which is historically a 5 to 10 year process. Without the MSBA, Old Colony will have to address the repair and renovation of the vocational technical high school through its regular capital improvement process, where taxpayers in our 5 communities pay the full cost without state assistance. We estimate base repair and code improvements to the existing high school at $134.3 million. 100% of these expenses would have to be paid with local tax dollars. The cost of maintaining the school would continue to rise and would not address any of the existing space issues at the school, nor provide capacity to open new vocational programs. At Old Colony, our project vision for a new high school is to foster opportunities for integrated vocational and academic learning in a modernized facility that's designed to maximize student voice, independence, and exploration. We've compiled every design detail and document, as well as a tax impact calculator for you to review on our project website. That's oldcolonybuildingproject.com.
On December 5th, 2019, we had a meeting in our Cougar's Den, that's our restaurant, with local superintendents, members of our 5 districts, and we talked about the planning of a statement of interest for this project. Since that time, we've posted almost every document from meetings online, so you could go to www.oldcolony.us, click on MSBA Building Project, and then click on Documents, and you can look up the history of documents that date back to a 2018 labor market blueprint, and then a 2020, I believe the documents start in 2021 with our original submission, which was rejected. In the second year of submission, we were accepted into the program, and then we began a planning stage. So at this point in time, what we'd like to do is we have probably close to 100 slides that we can use to support any answers that we may be able to provide for any questions that you may have. And again, if you have questions for Kyla and Dylan to be able to follow, and for the folks at home to be able to follow what you're asking, if you could just come up to the microphone, that would be wonderful, and we can open up the floor. So we'll open the floor if anybody has any questions. Tried to give it the 7-second teacher wait time. If folks at home have questions, you can certainly email us. You can email me at apolansky, as in yes, at oldcolony.us or .info. Either one will get to me. But my email address again is apolansky at oldcolony.us or .info, and I'd be happy to answer questions for people who have questions from home as well. If there aren't questions tonight, I really do want to thank everyone for being here. I know I'll see Scott and our Carver School Committee members next week at the MASS conference. But we've been to over 40 locations between September 1st and now to share information about the project. I'd offer to make more appearances, but I think literally every night from now until November 18th is almost full. So if people do have questions or they like to come to the school and see a little bit more of the inner workings, we certainly are open to bringing people in to show you what's going well and the systems that are also failing. I'll share that the building is 50 years old. It was very similar to the Carver building. It was built very similarly to that building. And so renovation would have been a very difficult task. The other issue that we're facing is that any type of repair we feel wouldn't be fiscally responsible on our part, because the old building, at that point, by the time you're done with repairs, you're talking about potentially a 65 to 70-year-old building, because they'd have to be drawn out over a lengthier period of time, because you can't move an automotive shop without building a new structure, if that makes sense. There's a lot of if this then that takes place. But again, we also understand that this is a significant ask. We're not downplaying that at all, but we're incredibly grateful for the level of support we've had and throughout the years. I will tell you that in my 10 years as superintendent director, our capital requests have been slim to none. We've really been conservative in our asks. That's intentional, especially as of recently, because to make a big repair at this point, once we're in an MSBA pipeline, would be fiscally irresponsible. So we're hoping that with the new construction project, we'll be able to address some of the failing systems without a temporary fix. But again, thank you to everyone for coming out tonight.
Before we call it
Yeah,
a
please.
night, I just feel as though it's unfortunate that there's no questions. Does anybody have a problem with me being a Carver resident for a minute? And just maybe ask some questions that people might be interested in?
Sure.
Can I usually have a loud enough voice that I don't have to carry? I'm curious. Can you explain why you need a bigger building?
So right now, every single educational space at Old Colony is under the state recommended sizes. And that's part of, that was part of the study that was done. The other piece is we actually could house more students in our vocational areas right now, but we couldn't fit them in our academic spaces. So our infrastructure is too small to even expand into vocational areas. If we have a larger building, we'll be able to add plumbing, HVAC, and dental assisting. We'll be able to appropriately outfit the current spaces. We'll be able to add art and music, and we'll be able to take administrators out of offices that have been created out of converted closets and put them into real spaces where I think personnel belong. So that's part of the answer to your question.
Can you tell us why you chose those 3 shops?
Sure. When we were evaluating, I have to stay by the mic. When we were evaluating what our growth model should look like, we knew we definitely wanted to be a fully operational construction outfit. And a good reason why, I'll talk about the fact that just recently we talked about the collaboration with Carver High School, junior and senior high school, where we built the concession stand. We've built structures in every member town, but we can only do so much. If we have plumbing and HVAC, we're a fully operational outfit. The next question that came up was, what about the balance between male and female students? We're currently 60% male and 40% female. We wanted to create a balance, and by adding dental assisting, we felt that we would address the equity concerns. And there's a labor market for dental assisting. There's also opportunity for students to move from dental assisting into a dental field. If a student wanted to go to dental school or study medicine, that's a great lead in. When we got to the 4th option, which was a biotech edition, actually Mr. Townsend was a very integral part of that decision, because he said, I just want to be cognizant of the impact to our sending districts, and we don't want to be too big. And that was really valued by the committee, because I think And I said it before, I asked Scott if his ears were ringing before he came in, because we were talking about the relationship that we have. That's important to us. I think that we've always had good partnerships with our sending districts, and our goal is to be able to coexist symbiotically. And we didn't want to go to 810 and have too much of an impact on the enrollment in our sending districts. By staying at 776, we're able to limit that impact.
Can you explain how the cost is broken down between the 5-member communities?
Yeah. So the cost to the 5-member communities is part of our regional agreement. The regional agreement, in any assessment that goes to our member towns, is figured based on 90% of the Old Colony enrollment. 90% of the number is based on the percentage of your enrollment, and 10% is your K through 12 enrollment. So if you have a higher enrollment at Old Colony, your cost via an assessment is typically higher. Now, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is, for many of our towns, when you look at the tax impact calculator, a town like Rochester that has very little retail and opportunity to offset their tax base will feel a heavier hit than a town that has a higher level of a tax base to offset the cost to the town, if that makes sense.
And what about the repeal? You know, why is that an option, and is it a viable option?
So the cost of the repair was a conservative $134 million that would be drawn out over a long period of time. $134 million is a Band-Aid on a 50-year-old building, and we don't believe that the lifespan of that building is really, I mean, it might last another 5 or 10 years, but if we're putting Band-Aids on something that already has failing infrastructure under the slab, and what I mean by that is, we went to snake a drain in Culinary recently and we pulled out dirt. That's a really bad sign, because that drain's no longer operational. To fix that under the slab, you have to jackhammer floors. And so you'd be constantly uncovering the next piece of the project in the repair without knowing really what you're getting into. When the estimators gave us numbers for repair and for renovation, the repair was less than the new high school, but not by a large margin. You can see the margin differential here. After incentives, we're talking about 140, I believe, 748 million versus 134 million. And to us, that was a no-brainer. The renovation skyrocketed. That's a really large number, in the 190 millions. And then the repair at 134 million just didn't seem to be a good fiscal decision based on the feedback that we received from the estimators. So that's the answer relative to the comparison between the repair and the new high school.
Can anybody think of anything else? I've only seen this like 40, 50 times.
I just have one question.
Of course.
What is the increase from Carver, student body?
So right now, what we're doing, because the state has changed the format for admissions, so for admission to Old Colony, it used to be merit-based. You'd have to earn your seat. It's now a lottery. Tomorrow we're meeting with all of our superintendents and our guidance counselors in a guidance breakfast to explain how the new lottery will work. But essentially what will happen is the application process opened on November 1st. We actually opened it a few days early just because we were up and ready and our policy was approved. But we'll draw a lottery on March 3rd. Our biggest concern was, what happens if you draw every single student from one town? What is the impact on the school and what is the impact on a municipality? So we put protections in place to avoid that completely. And what we're doing is we're taking two numbers. One is a historical number. It's the average of the last 3 freshman classes from your town. And we take that number and we have the base of the freshman class, and that's called the historical number. The next number is called predictive, and the predictive data is determined using your 8th grade enrollment as a proportion of the aggregate 8th grade enrollment for all of our member districts. Lakeville has the highest 8th grade enrollment out of all of our 5 districts. Mattapoisett has the lowest 8th grade enrollment. What that means is we'll then multiply that percentage by the number of seats being offered in the freshman class to determine a proportion of seats, and then that number is combined with the historical number to give us a final number. That ensures that we don't ever overdraw based on a lottery, and that it's representative of the proportion for each member town. When we proposed this initially to the Department of Ed, they were unsure as to whether they would approve it. And I argued adamantly that we cannot risk drawing every student from one town. That is not fair to our municipalities, it's not fair to our sending districts, and we have to have a protection in place so that we have a balance between our sending districts and Old Colony.
Can I respond to that question?
Please.
Typically, on average, last 25, last 25 years, Carver has 90 to 100 students in Old Colony, depending on the year. And typical draw is around 25 students. My estimation, Aaron, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we'll go to 35 students. But that's somewhat problematic. Like, for example, our current kindergarten class is 89 students. So when you take 35 of them, that's going to be an issue for the Carver Public Schools in 10 or 15 years.
Yeah. I don't have the exact number with me tonight. I'll have it tomorrow for the first lottery. Yeah.
I think that
It might be. That's probably an
that's a
accurate.
good faith estimate.
I would certainly trust your forecast.
And my number of 90 to 100 that's correct, right?
That's very
We've had
yes.
the last
That's very accurate.
25 years.
100%. Yeah.
And so we'll probably about 10 more kids a class. But Carver's population is dwindling, so that's I think a long-term concern, 10 to 15 years out.
Could you go over the lottery selection, please?
Sure. Is this hooked up to the internet?
It seems to be, yes, I'm up.
Can I log on to something?
Yeah.
I think it might be helpful to show a video.
So up here, and you're just gonna have to drag it over
Yeah,
there
no
when
problem.
you're.
Thank you. All right, so this will be helpful. I'm sorry, what is your name, sir?
My name's Paulo.
Thank you, Paul. Let me just turn the volume up so you can hear.
Real quick, I'm gonna duplicate screen instead of FaceTime. They can't see it over there.
Okay.
Duplicate.
Are we up? And then I'll turn the volume up in a minute.
Oh, oops. I didn't click keep.
We're up.
Okay.
Oh, did we lose it now?
Yeah, escape out of this real quick. I didn't click keep.
Okay.
My fault.
No problem.
All right.
No worries.
Let's dance again. Duplicate, keep this time. There it is. Okay, now we're
you.
good.
Thank you. This is an overview of the lottery process.
So, you're thinking about applying to All Colony for the 2025-2026 school year? Awesome choice. But that whole admissions lottery thing, it can feel a little confusing, right? Well, in the next few minutes, we're gonna break it all down for you, step by step, so you know exactly what to do and what to expect. It's no wonder so many people wanna go here. Old Colony has this amazing mix of top-notch academics and real hands-on vocational training. It's a pretty big deal in the region. And because it's so popular, the admissions process can seem, well, complicated. But don't you worry, our whole goal here is to give you a super clear, straightforward guide to the application and of course, the lottery system. So let's jump right in with the biggest question of all. Okay, first things first, why a lottery? I mean, why isn't it just first come, first served, or based on grades or something? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. This line from the school's official policy really says it all. It boils down to this. Way more students want to get into Old Colony than there are actual seats in the classrooms. So, who exactly is an eligible applicant? This is really the first hurdle you have to clear, and it's a big one. Let's make sure you qualify. This is the number of people. You have to be a resident of one of these 5 specific member towns. If your address isn't in one of those communities, then unfortunately, you're not eligible for the main lottery. And listen up, because this part is critical. It's not enough to just live there. You have to prove it. That means you've got to complete the residency affidavit before the lottery happens. No proof, no entry. It's really that simple. Okay, so you live in a member town and you've got your proof of residency all ready to go. Now what? Let's walk through the actual application itself. The whole thing really boils down to these 3 key steps. First, get the application. You can find it online. Second, make absolutely sure it is complete, and that means every single field is filled out and your proof of residency is attached. And third, you guessed it, submit it before the deadline. And speaking of on time, you're going to want to circle these dates on your calendar. The application window opens on November 1st, 2025, and it closes, and I mean this is a hard stop, at 2:30 in the afternoon on January 15th, 2026. Do not be late. All right, now for the part everyone asks about, the lottery itself. How does the school actually figure out how many students to accept from each town? It all starts with a process called seat apportionment. It sounds kind of formal, right? But really, it's just the official name for the fair method Old Colony uses to divide up all the available 9th grade seats among the 5 member towns. And the way they figure this out is actually really interesting. It's a 50-50 formula. Half of the seats for your town are based on history. They look at the average number of students your town sent over the last 3 years. The other half is all about the present. It's based on your town's percentage of all the 8th graders in the district right now. Here's a quick example to show you how it works. Let's pretend there's a town B. Based on its history, it gets 30 seats. But based on its current number of 8th graders, it gets 36 seats. So the school just averages those 2 numbers. They add 30 and 36, divide by 2, and voila. Town B gets a final total of 33 seats for the lottery. So after all that math is done and each town knows exactly how many seats it has, that's when the actual lottery happens. And it only happens if a town has more kids applying than it has spots. So for our town B, if 50 kids apply for those 33 spots, then yep, a random drawing is held just for that town's applicants. So the lottery's over, the results are out, what happens next? Well, whether you get an offer right away or you're placed on a wait list, there are some really important steps you need to take. If you get an offer of admission, first of all, congratulations. That's awesome. Now, you need to keep this number in your head, 5. You have exactly 5 business days to officially accept or decline. If you miss that window, the offer's gone and it goes to the next person on the wait list. So you've got to act fast. So what happens if a town doesn't end up using all of its seats? Well, they don't go to waste. They get offered to students on the wait lists from other towns. And this is done using a set rotation. For the 2025-2026 cycle, that rotation starts with a mathematical set. So the first available seat would go to a student from there, the next to Rochester, then Carver, and on down the list until every spot is filled. So to wrap this all up, here are the 3 big things you absolutely need to remember. 1, confirm you live in one of the 5 towns. 2, submit a totally complete application sometime between November 1st and January 15th. And 3, trust the process. It's a blind lottery, and it's designed to be as fair as it can possibly be. I know the whole process can seem a little intimidating, but just by understanding how it all works, you've already taken a huge step forward. You're ready. You got this. Good luck.
So that predictive number, to Scott's point, if the classes are smaller, then that predictive number really helps our district. Some other schools had looked at only a hybrid number, and we figured out through mathematic experimentation that would eventually flatline, and people would feel trapped at a number. The predictive number takes away that potential for a flatlined number. and really allows a variability for our districts based on what their class sizes are. The other thing that I wanted to share was we did not create that video in-house. We put our lottery admissions policy, into a program called Notebook LM. It's AI, and that came out. That was created by AI by simply putting a policy into the program, and it spit that out in 3 minutes. And if I told you that 5 years ago, you'd have to hire a videographer to create something like that, that's what's happening in vocational education in a lot of the fields. And I use that as an example because our machine and tool technology space right now has the same machines that existed when we opened our doors in 1975. That's a problem. Because we had to write grants to bring in a very limited number of machines to help our students learn on modern day equipment. So we brought in a significant amount of grant money through competitive grants to allow that to happen, but it's limited because they have to take turns. So a student couldn't be working on a modern day machine all day long right now. We just wrote a very extensive grant with hopes of replacing $2.5 million worth of machine and tool technology equipment. If that grant goes through, this budget goes down. So we're working aggressively. What you see in terms of a number is a worst case scenario, but we're working aggressively to ensure that we can do our best to bring these numbers down. PMA has worked on a multitude of projects, including projects in this town. Their record for bringing projects in under budget is phenomenal. They did it, bless you. They did it here. They're 35 million under right now at BP. And so our goal, again, is to give people a worst case scenario number, but our hope is to come in at a number that's significantly less than what we've put out. We have contingencies built into the program with hopes that we will be able to save our taxpayers significant money, but our job is always to underpromise and overdeliver. And so our hope is that we can underpromise and overdeliver, because it's always an error in action if you overpromise and underdeliver, if that makes sense. And I know I digressed a little bit, but Paul, I hope that answers your question about the lottery.
It does, but I just want to reconfirm what I heard.
Sure.
So the applicants will be restricted to residency.
Mm-hmm.
So it won't be someone that attends school through the school choice program for 4 years, and because they went to school here for 4 years, they won't be considered a resident.
There's a date, because we were asked this question, there's a date by which someone actually has to have been attending in order to be eligible to attend Old Colony. So if somebody attended Carver, and I think it goes back to maybe 4th grade, since 4th grade, I'm not sure if that's the exact date, they would be eligible. But if they were a newly acquired school choice student, let's say they came in 8th grade, they are not eligible to go to Old Colony. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it just, yeah, clears it up.
And that's a DESI regulation, that's not an Old Colony rule.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions?
As far as the building, where does that go?
So it's actually going to go right between the existing building
Yeah.
and the athletic fields. Have you been to the site before?
Yeah, so like where the student parking lot is?
Yeah, exactly. So this right here is the existing footprint. These are the sports fields. If I were 6 feet tall, you wouldn't be able to see them, but luckily you can see over my head. And then this is the new footprint. So that is actually, that would go where the existing student parking lots are. We also have parking back here, and the goal is to put some new parking in here so that people don't have to walk as far to the athletic fields. Once this is built, this would be torn down and this would become parking.
So your schedule is to do that when students in?
Yep, this would happen while students are in
Where would
school.
they park?
Say that again?
Where would they park?
Right now, there's a parking lot over here. So there's a significant amount of parking here, and we'll build these lots out as one of the first parts of the project. Right now, we also have no water redundancy and no fire protection because we're dependent upon a singular well. So our hope is to our plan is to tie into Middleborough water and bring water from Middleborough over to Old Colony. Whether or not the project happens, that's in the plan right now because we have to have fire protection and water redundancy. And then the other thing is, in terms of the footprint, we have singular egress right now. And you can imagine that in the event of an emergency, if there were something that was happening at the school, I'd be very scared about this being blocked because of incoming and outgoing traffic and a pileup. During graduation, we sometimes have a backup onto North Avenue. So, you know, in the event of an emergency, we want to add a second egress out to North Avenue.
I know that's not doing any of the fields.
So,
Just staying with that.
that's a great question. So Scott's question was, are we doing anything with the fields? By not building on the fields, we saved $10 million. So we will keep our existing fields as they are.
Will you be building a new field house, or would that be staying the same?
Right now, if something's to be done to the field house, it might be in the form of a renovation. I heard there's a pretty good carpentry program around too, so I don't know whether or not that might come to fruition, but the plan right now is to focus on just the new high school. If contingencies allow extras, that's a conversation that needs to happen down the road, but right now the focus is on a new high school.
Where your plan is to hook on to Middleborough water, is the current building or campus, is that on septic or is that on city sewage?
We're on septic and we have a leach field.
Okay, is there a plan to replace or upgrade the septic on that? Seeing it must be 40 years old?
I'm going to turn it over to Chad.
Yeah, so the size of the building and the population will require a full wastewater treatment plant, so that is captured in the project scope and budget, so that'll all be brand new. And then the existing well happens to be right around the footprint of the new building. Because it's in the buffer zone, one of the first things we would do as an early package would be run that line from North Ave and bring it into the new site, tie into the existing building before we take the old well offline, and then we jump it over the new building.
Thank you.
If folks are interested, a copy of the entire slideshow. When we began visiting locations, I'd say our first 25 to 30 presentations were an hour long, if not longer. And we felt that the hour was a really long time for people to sit through a presentation. So we created that video that you saw earlier to create a quicker synopsis for folks. But everything, including this slideshow, and the video are available on our www.oldcolonybuildingproject.com website. And you can get there by going to the Old Colony website and by clicking on MSBA project. And that will bring you to a plethora of information, complete transparency, answers to most questions. But if someone doesn't know where to look, just shoot us a message and we're happy to connect with people.
Can I have one more thing?
Please.
And thank you for allowing me to reside in the town of Carver. It was wonderful. Can you go back to the tax impact? Because no one here has asked it, and the question that is typically asked is, how can we afford this? How can we ask people to afford this? And as Aaron had said to everyone, and he says it in every community, we understand it's a significant ask. I typically join the team to be the senior citizen in the group because that's what I am. I have been retired for about 18 months, and it's still an experiment of how you live on a pension and Social Security. And I look at that and I remind you, that's the town I live in. If you look at the percentage, 18%, compare it to Carver's, and slide all the way over to the annual cost, it's a significant increase. And what I know, it's interesting because I think about this a lot. I moved into Rochester in 1979 with my husband and an 8-month-old daughter, and had a second daughter 2 years later. You send your kids off to school and you don't give it any thought, because it's assumed to be a birthright of children that they have a good education, not an adequate education, but a good education. Just send them off, you don't even give it a thought. When I joined the school committee for the first time, it was with the local school committee, and I did double duty because of the way we're governed, that I did both the elementary school and ORR, which is the district school. And I began to learn about school budgets. And it was a valuable lesson. Left there, joined FinCom for several years in Rochester, where I learned how the school budget works with the overall budget. So I would think Carver's not much different than Rochester is, that when you go to town meeting, you hear school takes up 50, 60, 65% of the town budget. And when you stop and think about it, schools are typically the biggest employer of town employees. But what I've come to realize, and I'm going to bet that Mark and Maureen can probably tell me whether it's the same thing in this town, town residents value education. Don't give it any thought. When I first called it a birthright, that's what it is. The community pays for education. They have always paid for education. I grew up in New Bedford. Somebody paid for my education. I didn't know who they were. They were my neighbors. I grew up in the North End. There was the South End, the West End. Everybody was paying for my education. I moved to Rochester. My kids are in their 40s. I haven't paid for education. I will admit, I have a grandson who graduated from ORR and a granddaughter at RMS. I'm still paying for their education. I have absolutely no connection with Old Colony, other than being on the school committee. None of my children went there. No one I know was employed there. I used to drive past it every time I came home from work. I'm in I think my 5th term. I seriously can't remember. That's what comes with age. But I look at it and I'm going, if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? That building has serious problems. And at $134 million, that's not a stagnant number. That number is going to increase. And that will not give us the space we want nor need. And to your superintendent, I appreciate what happens when a community has a diminishing population. It is difficult to make plans for your own elementary school, but these are Carver kids who want to go to Old Colony. So I would just ask you to think about, who paid for your education? Do we owe it to our children? And make that personal decision for yourself. Can you afford it?
So that concludes tonight's presentation, unless anyone has additional questions. And we will be in Acushnet at 4 p.m. on Monday. We'll be in Lakeville at 6 p.m. On Monday at the library in Lakeville. We'll be at the COA in Acushnet. If people missed the presentation but would like to see the presentation live and ask questions, you're more than welcome to join us at any venue. And then we'll be with the Rochester Fire Department, and that is not a public meeting, it's a meeting with them, just to provide them with an overview because they asked to learn more. And then there's a vote on November 18th between 12 and 8 p.m. And again, these are all a number of the visits we've made, but I just want to thank everyone for making it out tonight, or for anyone who's viewing from home. We appreciate you taking the time to learn more, and we're open to any further questions. So, thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.